Hi everyone. I'm going to be talking to you, giving a speech about my grandpa Frank. My As a result of my speech, I hope that you guys will understand how great of a person that my grandpa Frank was, and how and what traits that I've realized that I have inside myself that I've learned that I gained from him. Um, Most people nowadays have a person that they look up to, a, a role model. It could be in the form of a family member, close friend, sport athlete. For me, my grandpa Frank was one of my role models that I had in my life. My grandpa Frank was a wonderful man. He was a he was a mentor, um, a, a role model, and through all of that he managed to teach me a lot. And a little bit of history about me and my grandpa Frank is that I my parents were divorced, and when my dad and I lived with my grandparents, when my dad would be at work, my grandpa Frank and I always spent time together, and that was one of the many reasons uh, why he had such an impact on my life. Um, Throughout this speech, I will discuss that my grandpa Frank was um, that he, what we enjoyed talking about, and why we became so close. My grandpa Frank taught me a lot about history, and there's that's one of the main reasons why I am so um, why history has always been one of my favorite subjects in school. That I've scored advanced on the state testing throughout elementary school, and he was one of the main reasons why. To start off, my grandpa Frank and my grandma Henrietta were married for over 50 years. That is a long time to be married, and they stuck through it. They've had multiple kids. My dad is the youngest out of six, I believe. My little funny story on how they met. My grandpa Frank was my grandma's brother's younger sister. So, and my grandpa was actually best friends with my grandma's uh, older brother, which is how they met, and they been together ever since. Um, he worked for the city of Pasadena in the public works section. One thing I learned about him during his funeral is that when during the summer, as everyone who knows that lives in Southern California, there during the summer it gets really hot, and the fire season starts. He was actually um, high up in the public works management. That he was the during the fire season, he was one of the guys that was in charge of getting the equipment to the scene of the fire in a well managed time, and he did that job very well. Um, he also assisted with many projects throughout his time working for the city of Pasadena, and I kind of followed in his footsteps. I guess I don't work for the city of Pasadena, but I work for the city of Rancho Cucamonga, and so I that's my work ethic is one thing that I can say that I got from him. One other thing that my grandpa really loved is horror movies. Back when I was younger and I lived with my grandpa and my grandma at their house, we would always watch the classic the classic horror movies like Frankenstein, Young Frankenstein, The Wolfman, Dracula. Like I'm talking about the movies that are in like black and white that were more made in like the 1930s. Those are the movies that we watched, and even to this day, horror movies are my favorite kind of movies to watch. And that's another thing that I could say that I got from him. Um, like I mentioned earlier, he loved history. We would every time that my grandparents and I would go get lunch from someplace, um, we would talk about like the history events, what's going on in our current world, and how that would and what happened throughout our world's history. One thing that learned a lot from him was always love your family. And my grandpa was a very good example of this. He loved his family. He would do anything for his family, and he taught me that through every time that I spent, every time I saw him, and every day I spent time with him. He was a very strong man, both physically and mentally. Um, he passed away from stage 4 lung cancer uh, a couple years ago, and I remember going over to his house every day, um, spending time with him, talking to him. He would always try to keep his normal attitude up, and he would always try to not let it affect my time with him. And that's one thing that I will always remember of him, that he was very strong even till the very last day. He would always keep his same funny and sarcastic mood in the last days he was with us. Even did not matter how much pain that he was in. And in conclusion, my grandpa was a very hardworking man. That was a role model to not only me but to all my cousins, to my aunts, uncles, my dad. Um, he I hope that from this speech that you can see and learn how much of a great man my grandpa was, and I hope that everyone is able to find a role model, because we all need them. We can't go through this life alone, and by that we can look to our role models for all the guidance that we need. Thank you.